Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 Shruti Sharma.
Hello friends, this is Vijay. Welcome to ForumIAS Hindu Daily. In our today's news analysis, we are going to see the list of topics in the display. Here, the first topic, India needs a budget for its young. Its preliminary significance and the main significance had been given. In mains, actually it is very significant for GS paper number 3. And these are the articles we are going to see today. India needs a budget for its young. A new chapter in defense and tech. Will India witness an El Nino forecast this year? Then the fourth one, children have the right to protect their genetic data, Apex Court. Then the last one, India-Singapore link payment services. And here is the first article for us. India needs a budget for its young. Here the background they had given. Since the LPG of 1991, Indian economy have been performing in an impeccable manner. Even though the Kargil war of late 1990s pulled down the growth rate, but with the sheer dominance of service sector, India had matched what it had lost during the wartime. Since 2001 to 2008, India ramped up its exports by reaping the benefits of IT revolution. Then, the impact on Indian economy by subprime crisis is negligible. Okay, so India hadn't been affected much by subprime crisis. So that's what they had given in this article. Then, because of the high savings rate among the Indian masses and dominating domestic consumption, which decoupled India from not only the subprime crisis of 2008 but also from the Euro crisis of 2012. In the contemporary Industrial Revolution 4.0, our performance is depending not only on capitalizing the benefits of technology but also on capitalizing the demographic dividend what we are having, especially in the age group of 15 to 19. Okay, so the article is all about the discussion of the cohort age 15 to 29. Then according to the article 2020 data, India is hosting whooping 20% share in the 15 to 29 age cohort, which means in the future 1 out of 5 in labor force will be an Indian. Okay, so in the future 1 out of 5 in the labor force will be an Indian. So definitely international market forces are going to reap the benefits of Indian labors. But what about the policy initiatives in India? Okay, so international markets, anyway, they are going to reap the benefits. So we need to discuss what are the policy initiatives what India had taken. Let us have a brief look in the key budget proposals. On the front line, the government is going to allocate a massive allocation for capital expenditure. CapEx, you might have come across this term in the recent budget discussions. So the government is going to do a massive allocation for capital expenditure, which is for physical infrastructure in the form of transportation, energy and defense to tackle the menace of China and to keep check on the launchpads operating from Pakistan. Indian defense have been taking a huge share this year too. So cumulatively, this segment will be higher by 3.2 trillion in 2003 to 2024. The tax revenues, as expected, it will be a bit modest. Also, the government is looking to bridge the fiscal deficit to 5.9%. Here we should know what is meant by fiscal deficit. The fiscal deficit is the difference between the government's total expenditure and its total receipts excluding the borrowing. Okay, so the fiscal deficit is all about the expenditure minus receipts excluding the borrowings. So this is the fiscal deficit, and a fiscal deficit occurs when this expenditure exceeds the revenue generated. So for past 20-25 years, we have been a fiscal deficit country, and in certain occasions, due to the surge in service sector exports, we also became a fiscal surplus. Okay, so fiscal deficit is when government's total expenditure exceeded the revenue that it generates, excluding the money borrowing from borrowings. So the deficit doesn't mean debt, which is an addition of annual deficits. Okay, so it is not referring the debt, but an addition of annual deficits. So let us come back to the topic now. Here, how the change or how the government is going to bridge the gap, that we need to discuss. This time they are going to take a toll on social sector initiatives. Okay, so they are going to make a cut in social sector expenditures in the form of subsidy, and here the food subsidy they are going to reduce it by almost 90,000 crore. Okay, this is for food subsidy, and for fertilizer they are going to do a cut of 50,000 crore, and allocation to Narega will be reduced by 30,000 crore. So 30,000 crore cut will be for Narega. So these are the few things you should know, and these are the few things the author had discussed in this article. In health, education and agri domains, slight increase was there, but it will neutralize to the inflation. Okay, so anyway, actually the slight increase and all, it won't reflect in a massive way in the output form. So here in the second subtitle, public-private complementarities, as we have seen the Indian economy march in the early 2000s, right? Here the author have been discussing about the performance in capital expenditure in this timeline. Capital expenditure by the country highlights the capability of pumping out the productive assets from its coffers. So if the government is performing in an excellent way, means they need to do more capital expenditure. So this is what it have been mentioning. And in the 2007, our capex to the GDP was peaked at 42%. So if the government is having a GDP of 100, means we had allocated 42% for the capital expenditure. So this phenomenon, it had lasted till the emergence of Euro crisis. So even after the subprime crisis, this phenomenon had it was there till the emergence of the Euro crisis. In the subprime, let us discuss how India had tackled the subprime crisis. So subprime crisis is nothing but a global financial crisis which came in the year of 2008. All it started with a bankruptcy of the Lehman Brothers Bank in US. Here the China, they had tackled the global crisis by ramping up the domestic investments, because due to uncertain global conditions like FPI and FDI were not ready to take risk. Therefore, they actually boosted their domestic investments. So the public investments, it poured into the Chinese economy from the government coffers. Okay, so this is how they actually enforced the confidence in their economy. But India, it didn't in that way. Here, with respect to India, to bridge the fiscal deficit gap, government had limited its investment from its canals. So the public sector, they were also lost their confidence, and these factors made the investment to GDP to slump 27.3 in the year of 2020-2021. So gradually it had reduced, and in the 2020-2021, in that year actually we also had the pandemic. Therefore, the capex to the GDP was 27.3% only. And in the 2014, I think it was in the range of 32%, approximately 32%. So apart from these issues, the government these days having a perspective that social expenditures are wasteful. So this is how the government have been thinking about the subsidy and the related social expenditure. But the hardest truth is, when the government is shutting the doors for social expenditure, it not only hampers the social equality, but it is also affect the achievements what we acquired these years. So in Indian scenario, you all well known about the formalization in Indian economy. Only 9.8% of the laborers, they are deployed in the formal labor force. Therefore, the Narega, the rationing have been acting as a boon for the rest of the people. Okay, so this is what the subtitle had been discussing. And now let us discuss the next one, investment in people and invest in future. Today, the global landscape is more of knowledge oriented, that you might know very well. We are in the era of Industrial Revolution 4.0. So if we are cutting the social expenditure on education, food or MG Narega, means it will cut the opportunities to downtrodden section. Okay, so here in the example they had given, in 2022, only 2.6%, okay, only 2.6%, it is not a 2.9%, it is a 2.6% of candidates were eligible in the NEET out of 1.9 million candidates. Okay, so this is what the case study they had given. If we are feeding the destitute woman through the MG Narega, means her children will go here children will go to a school in a fulfilled way. So this is also one of the case study the author have been discussing here. And also among the Indian masses, there is a general frustration have been prevailing. So because there are no suitable jobs for the individuals who pursued or who actually groomed their skills in the education. So therefore, there is a general frustration. Therefore, the social sector spending will give a boost to not only on the demand front but also in the supply front. So both the demand and the supply will be created. It will create more and more job opportunities and it will escalate the demands. Also, it will ensure the safety to women in the form of education, job and economic independence, etc. Okay, so this is what the author have been discussing here. Now let us discuss about the conclusion part, unwarranted fears about the fiscal deficits. Here the author discussing about the government possession of unwarranted fears regarding the fiscal deficit. Till today, the public institutions like Provident Funds Organization, then the public sector banks have been having a massive share in government debt. So with respect to external debt, it's only 4.24%. Okay, only 4.2% alone we are owing the external debt. So this is not a data for India to think too much. This is how the author have been concluding here, and he is also advising the government that we won't face the situation what Greece and Sri Lanka had faced. Author, he also had taken an example from Indian society, like the common middle class. Most of the middle class families, they are opting education loan for their child because they think that the child will provide the upward mobility. Therefore, spending on social expenditure will open the new avenues for job growth and other prospects. So, which in turn will propel the economy to achieve more and more in the future. Therefore, this is a time for make or break moment with respect to the young Indians who are in the age gap of 15 to 29. So this is how the author have been concluding this article. Now let us discuss the next article. Here is the second article, a new chapter in defense and technology. Since independence, both India and China, they had traveled in a non-parallel tracks, and except some programs like PL 480 program, through which India got subsidized food crops from US. So in which India was extended the food crops. Okay, so ideologically and politically, both these democracies are having 180-degree opposite views. So here the news, earlier this month, both US and India, they had kickstarted the initiative on critical and emerging technologies, ICET. So this is the initiative that both India and US had kickstarted now. In military, actually India adhered to the principles of sovereignty that you might have known very well. Apart from that, the principles of non-aggression, mutual settlement, peace and tolerance. Whereas US is popular for aggressive military ventures throughout the history, be it in Vietnam, Iraq or Afghanistan. But these days, the relationship between both these countries had been recalibrated by the leaders, especially after the civil nuclear deal of 2008. So in 2008, which is the civil nuclear deal, it was happened between India and US. It is also called as a 123 agreement. Okay, 123 agreement. So you can expect the question. Since the 1960s, India has made many attempts to collaborate with US in a tech front. Both these countries they started to realize their potential with the initiative on critical and emerging technologies. So these days, India also accruing major achievements in multiple domains of science and tech and management. Under ICT, both India and the US have identified 6 focal areas of development. The first one is strengthening innovation ecosystems. And both these countries, they have been focusing on multiple startups. Therefore, they are going to strengthen the innovation ecosystems. Then the second one, defense innovation and technology cooperation. US is also one of the major defense partner for India these days. And the third one, resilient semiconductor supply chains. We all well known because of the semiconductor crunch, what we had witnessed in the recent past. The automobile production were slumped because of the crunch in semiconductor supplies. Then the fourth one, for space, then the fifth one is for STEM talent, and the sixth is for next generation telecom technologies. So these are the few areas India and US is going to focus. Here we need to convert the intents to results by collaboration to create a win-win situation for all of us. Under the subheading American aid, since the India's freedom, the collaboration was there between the both countries, but not in an extensive way as we discussed earlier. In the Cold War era, US had provided multiple assistances. In the Cold War era, US emerged superior in steel, heavy electricals, petroleum, and mining, whereas US it emerged superior in modernizing, engineering, and management education, science and tech, and agriculture. So these are the areas where US emerged superior. In the nuclear energy front, US helped India to build the first reactors for research and power. So between 1960s to 1970s, a batch of scientists were trained in US regarding the nuclear energy. But after taking expertise from US, India tested its first nuclear test in the year of 1974. So this test actually it actually had brought the trust deficit between both the nations. So the aid actually what provided by the US, it should have benefited the Indian economy in large scale. But due to the Indochina war, then Indo-Pakistan war, and India's miscalculation of international community, it pulled down the India's growth rate. Okay, so these are the few things you should keep it in mind. But in the time period when India faced a huge food crisis, the US they actually pumped out certain things to India, the hybrid seeds and synthetic fertilizers. So through which India attained self-sufficiency in food production, and the regions like Punjab, Haryana, Western UP and parts of Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, they benefited from these programs, even though it reached social inequality and land degradation. But after the nuclear test of 1974 and the Indo-Bangladesh war, India was the prime target of US in the name of non-proliferation. So these are the few things, scenarios which happened between the year of 1970 to 1980. But in the 1980, the scenario started changing. The factors are Soviet invasion of Afghanistan and Gandhi-Reagan Science and Technology Initiative in the year of 1984. So these are the few improvements what India and US had witnessed between 1980 to 1990. In the same 1987, US agreed to support the milestone LCA Tejas program. Okay, so right now we are having Tejas fighter aircraft. The initiatives were taken in the year of 1987. So where India actually it got the engines from US, the GE 404 engines, because India even though they developed the Kaveri engines, the thrust to body weight ratio is very poor in Kaveri engines. Therefore, India opted for GE 404 engines from US. So in the post-Cold War era, to achieve the monopoly in global power base, US started to twist the countries to sign the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. So here India reacted the pressure with the second nuclear test in the year of 1998. Here US also understand the mounting pressure from China. Therefore, it changed the positions and started supporting India in various domains. The testimony for it is a 123 agreement. So after the Soviet collapse in the end of the Cold War, to achieve the monopoly in global power base, US started to twist the countries to sign a comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty. Here, India, it reacted the pressure with the second nuclear test in the year of 1998. So India, it tested the second nuclear test in the year of 1998. Here, US also understand the mounting pressure from China. Therefore, it changed the positions and started supporting India in various domains. The testimony for it is 123 agreement. Okay, 123 already we discussed. But still the road of friendship with the US is not smooth. And even though the India started purchasing its weapons and became a major defense partner, India is not a major non-NATO ally status which Pakistan hails today. Okay, so even in the recent past, India had witnessed the stress from US under Katza and the oil trade with Russia. So this is how the author have been discussing here. And in this next subtitle, ambitious goals, under the IACT, various ambitious goals had been set up. Some of them are aspirational, while some of them are political. A few are the US has well-developed jet engine mechanisms. Okay, so they are a front runner in jet engine mechanisms. These days, India started developing its indigenous aircrafts. So we might be requiring the jet engine mechanisms for the improved performance in our jet variants. US is also famous for its technological advancements in other sectors like green energy, then hydrogen-based economy, etc. Because the US California is pioneering in capitalizing the advancements of hydrogen energy. In the budget, Union Finance Minister, she also expressed their political willingness to reap the benefits by collaborating with the US. So this is how the author have been concluding. So even though there were a lot of snags in the relationship between the India and US, still there is a potential that both countries need to capitalize. Now let us dive into the next article. Will India witness an El Nino forecast this year? Kindly go through this article. And why in news? India is experiencing a colder winter than normal because of La Nina. And because of north-south winter flow set up by the climate phenomenon known as La Nina, so India is experiencing a colder winter. Now it is predicted that 50% probability is existing for El Nino to occur in the fall and spring of 2023. So this is what they had given in the intro portion. And we should know what is meant by El Nino and La Nina. El Nino and La Nina, they are complex weather patterns resulting from variations in ocean temperatures in the equatorial Pacific region. They are actually opposite phases of what is known as El Nino Southern Oscillation Cycle. Okay, El Nino Southern Oscillation Cycle. So the ENSO cycle, it describes the fluctuations in temperature between the ocean and atmosphere in the east central equatorial Pacific. And El Nino is a climate pattern that describes the unusual warming of surface waters in the eastern tropical Pacific Ocean. So this is the South America, and here the phenomenon of El Nino and La Nina will happen. This is a Pacific Ocean, eastern equatorial Pacific Ocean, and it occurs more frequently than La Nina. That you should keep it in mind. And now let us discuss the basic tenets of El Nino. It was recognized by the Peruvian fishermen off the coast of Peru as the appearance of unusually warm weather. The Spanish immigrants, they only call it as a El Nino, making the little boy. Okay, so meaning is little boy. And El Nino, it soon came to describe irregular and intense climate changes rather than just the warming of coastal surface waters. So the El Nino event, it is not a regular cycle, that you should keep it in mind. They are not predictable and occur irregularly at 2 to 7 year intervals. Okay, 2 to 7 year intervals is the timeline. There we can witness the changes in El Nino and La Nina patterns. The southern oscillation is a change in air pressure over the tropical Pacific Ocean when coastal waters become warmer in the eastern tropical Pacific. So whenever the water in the eastern coastal become Pacific, its temperature is high, the southern oscillation will happen, and it is a change in the air pressure over the tropical Pacific Ocean. So the climatologists, they define this linked phenomenon as El Nino Southern Oscillation, okay, which is termed as a ENSO. And let us discuss about the La Nina. La Nina, it is the cool phase of the El Nino, and it is a pattern that describes the unusual cooling of the tropical eastern Pacific. In the same region, the water will be more colder than what it is supposed to be. Okay, so this is the La Nina event. Both phenomena are tend to peak during the northern hemisphere winter. So this is a uniqueness of La Nina and El Nino. Developing countries that depend on their own agriculture and fishing, particularly those bordering the Pacific Ocean, are usually most affected in the phase of oscillation. So the pool of warm water in the Pacific near South America is often its warmest about Christmas. Okay, so now let us discuss what will happen to the cyclone formation and the monsoons. So generally, whenever the transient is happening to El Nino from La Nina, the monsoon will be facing a deficit of 15%. So intraseasonal or subseasonal time cycle in sea surface temperatures and wind is also important for cyclogenesis, that we need to keep in mind, and which refers to the process of forming a cyclone. Okay, cyclogenesis is a process of forming a cyclone, and these time scales denote the duration for which the certain temperature and wind characteristics persist in the pre and post monsoon periods. So the net effect is for cyclogenesis to be subdued in an El Nino year. So this is how they have been stating. And the weather broadcasters, they also reveal that the effect of positive Indian Ocean dipole will neutralize the deficit going to occur by the El Nino. We should know what is meant by Indian Ocean dipole, right? So Indian Ocean dipole, it is same like a El Nino phenomenon. It is happening in the Indian Ocean. It is the difference between the temperature of the Eastern Bay of Bengal, okay, Eastern Bay of Bengal and the Western Indian Ocean, that is the Arabian Sea. It depends only on the Indian monsoon, it not only depends on the El Nino, but also on the IOD. So that you should keep it in mind. And here they had given, there are three variants of IODs, positive, negative, and neutral. Before getting here, let us discuss the characteristics of IODs. So Indian Ocean Dipole, the temperature difference, I already told you, there will be a temperature difference. So this temperature difference results in the pressure difference, which results in the flowing of winds between the eastern and western part of Indian Ocean. So whenever the changes in the temperature of water happens, there will be a pattern of change in the wind also. So there are three phases. Okay, in the neutral phase, the water flows from the Pacific between the Indonesian islands, keeping seas warm to the northwest of Australia. Air rises above this area and falls across the western half of the Indian Ocean basin, blowing westerly winds along the equator. Okay, so this is the neutral IOD. And during the positive phase of IOD, the westerly winds weaken along the equator, allowing warm water to move to the Africa. So the changes in winds also allow a rise of cool water from the deep ocean in the east. This creates a temperature difference across the tropical Indian Ocean, with cooler than normal water in the east and warmer than normal water in the west. This event is to be found beneficial for the monsoon. So here there will be a warmer and here there will be a cold water. So this is a positive phase and this is a negative phase. Here the water will be more cooler and here the warm water will be there. If there is a warm water, means there will be enhanced precipitation will be there. But if you are having cold water here, means the monsoon will be affected. Okay, so this is the basic thing you should know. The article had discussed the other factors influencing the monsoon are warming in the Arctic regions, river runoff in the Bay of Bengal. So these are the other factors the article have been discussing. These changes together create a favorable conditions for the formation of bigger cyclones, like that the author have been concluding. Let us wait for the El Nino broadcast and then we'll discuss the topic again in the future. Now let us discuss the next article. This is the fourth article. Children have the right to protect their genetic data, Supreme Court. Yesterday, the Apex Court held that in a judgment that children cannot be subject mechanically to DNA test. DNA test it usually conduct to establish the paternity, okay, to establish the relationship between the children and their parents. In each and every case between varying parents as a shortcut to establish the proof of infidelity. So this is how they have been discussing. And in the judgment, they quoted that a child's genetic information is a part of fundamental right to privacy. So it have been covering under the article right to life in the 21. So the second statement, children have the right not to have their legitimacy questioned in the court. So this is how the judgment have been stating. And because of the issues between the parents, the child should not get affected. This is the crux of the judgment. The psychological trauma, under the psychological trauma, the author have been discussing, or the paper or the article have been mentioning about the UN Convention on the Rights of Child. So this convention, it acknowledges the control that individuals, including children, have their own personal boundaries and the means by which they define who they are in their relations to other people. So this is the tenet of the UN Convention on the Rights of Child. So in the judgment, the judge have been mentioning about the UN Convention on the Rights of Child. Now let us discuss the genetic testing. Genetic testing, it is also known as a DNA testing. It is used to identify changes in the DNA sequence or chromosomal structure. Okay, so DNA is a genetic material that you might know very well, which will be in our cells, that serves as a blueprint for our unique futures. It carries the instructions that enable our body to perform various functions. So these are the few advantages: prevention and the treatment of disease through the genetic analysis. We can prevent certain genetic disorders. Then through the genetic testing, we can establish the paternity, which means the parenthood. Then the development delays in children and all can be analyzed and it can be normalized. Then the criminal justice system, it is used to test the criminals against the crimes what they had did with the help of some genetic materials like nails, skins, hairs, etc. And disadvantages, the genetic discrimination and all have been happening throughout the world. Okay, the superior race and the inferior race, like that. Then the genetic privacy have been getting affected, and it have been misleading to several other phenomena which can be described, and it is not a foolproof. Okay, so even in the genetic testing, there will be some error and miscarriage of justice. Okay, so here in the miscarriage of justice, we should know the DNA can also be abused, misused, or misunderstood. Okay, so in such a way, it will miscarriage of justice. And here, the mother and the child, the VNTR have been mentioning variable number tandem repeats, and it will be analyzed with the father 1 and father 2. This is a particular case. Okay, so to establish the paternity, they have been comparing the two fathers variable number tandem repeats. So these dots are variable number tandem repeats, V and TR. And regarding the genetic testing, certain committees recommendations are also there. P. Shah committee, okay, it suggested that there should be safeguards to prevent the illegal collections and use of the DNA data, and further providing safeguards to prevent the proposed body from misusing this same. Okay, so they actually called for particular body to regulate the affairs what it have been happening in the genetic testing. The report also suggested that there should be a mechanism of appeal under which citizens under trial can request for a fresh sample to be taken. Okay, so these are the few recommendations P. Shah committee had made. Then in the Malimat committee, it actually recommended the amendment of the criminal procedure code, conferring all criminal courts at all levels with the inherent power to pass appropriate orders. Okay, so the maintenance of strict confidentiality with regard to keeping of records of DNA profiles and their use. So these are the few recommendations of the Malimat committee report. Now let us discuss the last article of today. The India's UPA and Singapore Pay now, they officially launched their real-time payment mechanisms. Okay, so let us discuss about it. And the India's UPA and Singapore Pay now established a real-time payment linkage. And Singapore is the first country with which cross-border person-to-person payment facilities have been launched. Okay, the benefits: the real-time transaction of NRI. So the students and the NRI who are living in Singapore and in India, they can exchange the money through the real-time payment mechanisms, and we can exchange the amount and all through the relatives also. So the remittance inflow will be boosted. So these are the few benefits you should know. Now let us discuss about the UPI. It is an advanced version of immediate payment services. It is a round-the-clock fund transfer mechanism to make a cashless payment faster, easier, and smoother. So UPI, it is currently the biggest among the NPCI operated systems, including the National Automated Clearing Houses and Immediate Payment Services, Aadhaar-enabled payment system, and Bharat Bill payment system, and RuPay. So among these, UPI is holding the massive share in the cashless transactions. And as a part of agreement, India's UPI will be linked to Singapore's Pay Now, and NPCI launched UPI with 21 members bank in 2016. And India's digital payment industry is likely to grow from a 2,153 trillion at a 27% compound annual growth rate to 7,902 trillion by 2025. So 2,153 trillion to in the year of 2023 to 7,092 trillion by 2025. So this is a basic data you should know. Now let us discuss the challenges what we are having. The cybercrime threats are there. Okay, then the fraudulent claims and the fake buyer accounts, promotion coupon abuse. So these are the few challenges we are witnessing in the UPA system. Apart from the identity theft and the card detail theft, then the triangulation frauds are also there. So these are all the few challenges we are facing with respect to the UPI. Then let us discuss about the NPCI. It is an umbrella organization which have been operating the retail payments and settlement systems, and it is an initiative of RBI and the Indian Banks Association under the provisions of the Payments and Settlements Act 2007. So it is a not-for-profit under the Section 25 of the Companies Act 1956. So this is a few tenets about the NPCI. Now let us discuss the prelims and mains question part. Here is the first question for you. Consider the following statements about the NPCI. NPCI promotes the financial inclusion in the country. So this is the first statement, and the second one, it have been regulating the ATM networks in India. So this is the question the UPSC had asked in the year of 2019. So NPCI through the initiatives like UPA and Aadhaar-based payment system, then Bharat Pay and all, they have been promoting the financial inclusion. So both these statements are true, and the answer option C is the right one for the question number 1. Then the second question, consider the following statements with respect to the Indian economy. India's forex reserves have been rising since 2000 to 2023. This is the first statement. The second one, since the enactment of FRBM Act, the government have been reducing fiscal deficit consistently throughout the years. So, since the enactment of the FRBM, the government have been reducing the fiscal deficit, but not consistently. Okay, during the pandemic time, it actually skyrocketed. Now, nowadays, actually, it is in the range of 5.9. So, government hadn't been reducing the fiscal deficit consistently. So, the second statement is wrong. India's forex reserves, it have been rising since 2000, that's fine, but not to 2023. Okay, so after the pandemic time, we have been witnessing the erosion in the forex reserves. So both these statements are false, and the answer option D is the right one for question number 2. And this is the mains question for you. Describe the Indian monsoon. Better you can go through the NCERT, and you might be knowing the facts about the Indian monsoon and its characteristics. Analyze the factors which have been influencing the monsoon in India. Here you can describe about the El Nino, La Nina, then the polar warming, then Indian Ocean dipole, both negative, positive and neutral. Okay, so these are the factors you can discuss here, and this is the basic skeleton for this question. Just try it. And thank you for your patience, friends. Let me catch you in tomorrow's analysis. Bye.